All right, guys, the ladies on The View are at it again. The View derails as Kellyanne Conway and Alyssa Farah get in heated spat. Quote, "That's such a cheap shot." All right, so let's see what the argument is over.
Well, first, Kellyanne, I do want to acknowledge something you said last segment. I remember flying on Air Force One in October of...
I don't know why this Mediaite video has the sound coming out of one speaker, one headphone for me. It's kind of annoying.
2020, and two very senior advisors to the president, Dave Bossie and Corey Lewandowski, turned to me and said, we would be winning this race if it was Kellyanne running the campaign. So I think that there's some real truth to the direction it went the second time around, and that perhaps you having a more senior role would have changed that. But I have to ask you something. We served together briefly in the White House my second time. I admired you the first time when I was working for Pence. You were very helpful to me.
What happened the second time?
Oh, the second time? No, I just meant I looked up to you. We were in more comparable roles. I was in more junior role the first time. I broke with the president ahead of January 6th when the big lie started being shared. I resigned in December 4th, and I spoke out after January 6th when I saw a violent mob assault the Capitol.
Is there a question in here?
Yes.
Okay.
How do you still defend him?
Snippy. That was snippy as hell, wasn't it?
Do you still think he could be a good president after he tried to overturn our democracy?
Okay, so I left 3 months before you did for my children. I have 4 of them. And I said less drama, more mama, and that's exactly what I did. I think you stayed a whole month after the election that you were having a problem with. But that said,
I wanted to help my junior staff get jobs. I stayed for 3 weeks.
I think people should know that because I haven't seen you since you've changed. But I want to say this to you.
I didn't change.
Super snippy. I mean, she asked a pretty understandable question, like, hey, this guy was sort of egging on people to do a riot at the Capitol, and why do you support him after he did that when clearly he has no principled belief in democracy? He wants to overturn a democratic election. How do you support that? And now she's taking, like, personal shots at her and being super snippy about it.
Just to be clear, I didn't change. I swore an oath to the Constitution.
You get to talk here every day.
I swore an oath to the Constitution, not to Donald Trump.
I know, but Alyssa, I know that you've, as we all did, but, and I appreciate that. I think there was a lot wrong with the 2020 campaign. And I think in addition to that, afterwards, your former boss, Mark Meadows, who was a terrible chief of staff, the man did not match the moment.
She's not answering the question at all. Not even close.
For a global pandemic, a re-election campaign.
Neither did Donald Trump.
Excuse me, protests after George Floyd's murder. He didn't match the moment at all, and didn't take advice from people who had been there.
But do you think Donald Trump matched the moment?
And then he allowed supplicant after sycophant after showman to come before the Resolute desk and promise the president that was the day they were going to find more votes in Arizona, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania.
We don't think you're going to answer her question.
So she's saying that Mark Meadows was Alyssa Farah's boss, and he was the one who was facilitating the Michael Flynn's and the Lynn Woods and the Mike Lindells to, like, go make their case to Trump about how the election's getting overturned. So she's trying to say, like, well, your boss is responsible for hyping up the big lie, effectively, and getting that to Trump's ear.
Because we only have 2 minutes left. So, I was on ABC, so I'll answer your question. Maybe you missed it. I was on ABC live on January 6th. And George Stephanopoulos. And I said, people have to get out of the Capitol. What are you doing there? Why have you reached the Capitol? What is going on?
Okay, but you're still supporting Donald Trump now.
Live on January 6th. Alyssa, if you're saying that somehow you think we're supposed to think that you've seen a light and not just see your name in lights, that's not fair. What do you mean I'm still supporting her?
So I think she's saying, like, hey, you sold out to the liberal media and basically turned on the conservative movement. That's the argument she's making. But Alyssa makes a good point when she's like, you still support Trump after the whole election was rigged nonsense, and it was proven that it wasn't rigged. Over 60 court cases, Trump lost virtually every single one of them. Even Trump judges laughed Trump out of court. You had the Arizona audit where Biden won by more votes than we thought he won by on election day. I mean, this thing is litigated. It's done. It's over. Biden's president. Trump's wrong that it was rigged. So she's saying after all that, you still support Trump. And instead of explaining that, being like, yeah, I do because I like his policies more than I care about democracy. Like, just give an honest answer or some shit. She's, like, personally attacking her.
Let me ask you a question. How is a man qualified to be president if he incited?
He's not the president. Joe Biden
I know,
is.
but you're talking about maybe a second term. You've never denounced Donald Trump. when he incited a violent mob that attacked the U.S.
that day.
Capitol.
First of all, I didn't.
But then you went right back to it.
Okay, so what we're going to do...
Yeah, all of them on that day were flipping out privately. Hannity was like, this has to stop. One of Trump's kids was like, he's got to go out there and denounce this immediately or his legacy is going to be ruined. Marjorie Taylor Greene was panicking behind the scenes. Now, by the end of the day, some of them were blaming Antifa. But in the actual moment it was going on, everybody who's in a top official position in the Republican Party with some power, they were all losing their minds. So for Kellyanne Conway to say, like, on the day of or that same week, I was like, this is bad. Lowest bar ever. Because you went from this is bad to now I'm going to simp for this guy and still be on his side, even though he very clearly is against democracy when it doesn't cut in his direction. I mean, that is kind of crazy, isn't it? That is kind of crazy. Even Republican voters want him to shut up about the 2020 election. So, I mean, look, I just wish Kellyanne could be honest about it and say, look, I support Trump, I support his policies, and I like his policies and him so much that the democratic process is ancillary to that. It's ancillary to that. Because she knows the election's not rigged. But she can't be honest and make that point because it exposes her for what she is. Somebody who's fine with, like, authoritarianism or a dictatorship as long as it's a dictatorship with her policies and ideals. So she can't say that because then that exposes her for being a joke and a clown and an unserious person who doesn't believe in any sort of democratic process. So instead of addressing that, she's sort of attacking Alyssa, basically like you sold out to the liberal media type stuff. And it's getting petty and snippy. And now I'll show you the end of this, but everybody starts talking over each other.
Right now is we're going to move on because we're going to do me a favor, because we don't have as much time as we did. So do this.
I did like working with her.
I'm sorry, Kellyanne, don't go on.
I was on ABC News on January 6th. People get the hell out of the Capitol. And I don't want the 74 million Biden voters.
This is unfortunate, but we're going to go if you can't let her do the question.
Chaos. Utter chaos. Look, my ultimate takeaway from this is there might be some truth that Alyssa Farah woman viewed the January 6th thing as like, well, now I can capitalize by being the former Republican who's telling it like it is and telling Republicans that they're wrong and they're bad. And so maybe she did run into the open arms of the liberal media with the establishment Democrat sensibilities. That's certainly possible. But Kellyanne Conway does annoy the shit out of me much more because she's not being honest. She can't be honest about what her true beliefs are, which is that she doesn't really care that much about democracy. She supports Trump and his policies over democracy. And more importantly, her complete and utter inability to directly answer a question. That has always been one of my pet peeves. I hate people who are not direct, who don't just tell you what they're thinking. If you're evasive, if you're dodging, if you're bobbing and weaving, I can't, it's insufferable. Dog, we all got a limited amount of time on this earth. I don't have an extra 27 seconds to listen to you, do sophistry and mental gymnastics in front of me. I don't care about your sophistry. I don't care about your mental gymnastics. Be honest with yourself and be honest with everybody else. Be direct. Answer the question in a straightforward way. And she's doing anything but that. Anything but that. So Kellyanne Conway, more annoying, super obnoxious, and this video was complete and utter chaos. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.